So let's just stay inwardly focused. And we begin by opening, just simply put, we begin by opening to grace. Now, mind wants us to believe that we're on our own here, that we're separate in a world full of numerous other separate beings. And especially in times of great intensity, such as the one that we're in, the mind tends to feel alone and abandoned, which results in great fear. So one of the very important things that we want to do to kind of counteract this is to open ourselves to begin to focus on the felt sense of connection that the heart knows with the source of all things. The mind may not know much about that. The mind's conditioning may not have had much of that exposed. But the heart always feels its connection, because the heart, the true spiritual heart, is an individualized focal point of the divine heart. So the heart knows its connection to the whole and to source. So let's start, and I invite you to start all practices with some kind of invocation. And we're just listening to a great invocation, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. I bow to the great supreme consciousness that underlies all things. But it can be a simple prayer. I open to grace. Though I may not be able to feel it, I open to my connection to the universe and to all things. Or it can be the request for help. Help me to be able to see past the fear and the turmoil, the grief that's so prevalent right now. Help me to see the light in the darkness. Show me how to be so skillful with the fear that's in my system that I learn to transmute it into light, back into love. Or another mantra we've used a lot in our classes, Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Gurudev, the divine teacher. I bow, I open to the divine teacher. Find a way right now, with words or without words, to open yourself to higher consciousness, to open yourself to grace. So then once you've done that, once you've invoked the presence of the divine, once you've opened and surrendered to higher consciousness, then affirm in your own mind that how the rest of the evening unfolds will be exactly what's needed for you, for your highest good. And it could be that each of us in this room will have little different experience, but it'll be exactly what we're needing at this particular time. The experience will be particularly catered just for you. That's how you'll experience it. Make that part of your request, part of your intention. Not just to be here to learn something conceptual, something intellectual, to file into a file cabinet full of great ideas. But what is it, Divine Mother, that will grow me in my understanding, in my realization of truth and love? Let's sit for a moment in that intention. To grow tonight in our realization of truth and love. And don't get into an intellectual discussion in your mind about what that even means. Just stay in that intention to grow in my realization of truth and love. My realization of it. So it's very helpful when you set such an intention and sit with it, just not allow the mind to try to figure out how to make that happen. Mentor the mind to hold the intention and then to be still. Opening to the way in which grace will grow you in your realization of truth and love tonight. Opening to the way in which grace will apply truth and love to your current experience, no matter what it is. And not to look for the words coming out of this mouth to be profound, but to listen within to the impulse that comes, to the inspiration that comes from within the heart, from within the silence. Okay, so we've set that intention to open to the way in which grace will grow us in our realization of truth and love. And now, look with curiosity and acceptance to everything that's going on in your system. If you can be very honest, you'll probably find, as most of us can tonight, that there's a lot in the system that doesn't feel like truth and love. There's fear in the system. And there's sadness and overwhelm and frustration and anger and grief and despair. Some of it may be, quotes, ours, and a lot of it may be what we're just picking up from the collective consciousness. See if you can be willing to just check in with your attention, with your awareness, and be very honest with yourself about what's present in your system. Be curious about it and be accepting with it. So we're not trying to use spiritual practices here to make ourselves feel better. This practice is to connect honestly and directly with whatever is in the system, whatever is in the body-mind. And it might be, some of it may be quite uncomfortable. And we practice letting go of any of the judgments that might be present in the mind. The judgment that might say, well, I'm not, if I were more spiritual, I wouldn't be feeling this, I'd be feeling something else, or any of those kind of stories. Just let those go. We let go of any effort to try to figure out what's mine and what somebody else's, and where did I pick this up and where did it come from. Let that go too. And just notice what you feel and where in your body you feel it. And make room for that. Relax around that. Unclench the body. And as you feel it, keep the body relaxed, keep the heart open. These are very important components of the practice. As you feel whatever you feel, as intensely as it might be 2 on the scale of 0 to 10, it might be 9.5 on the scale of 0 to 10. Whatever it is, feel it, keep the body relaxed, keep the heart open, keep the breath moving. It's important to keep the heart as wide as you can. This allows the emotional energy to run its course and to dissipate out the open heart. And it also allows for the possibility of feeling the presence of the higher self, the presence of love. Now, without making this intellectual, as you're holding this perhaps difficult, painful, or challenging emotional energy in your awareness, understand that what's watching it is so much more than the mind. What's watching it is pure awareness. This awareness that's watching the pain is your true nature. Infinitely intelligent, unconditionally loving. You may not feel all of that right now. That's totally fine. It is nonetheless the truth about you. And this, which is your core or essential nature, you're allowing there to be, in this practice, a connection between that higher heart or self and this painful energy, this fear, this sadness, this despair. You're allowing a connection to take place between these two. By just being willing to hold this very challenging energy, instead of pushing it away, instead of distracting from it, repressing it, trying to get rid of it, just by holding it in the open heart, there is the possibility for the nature of this awareness, which is love, to touch these very painful, difficult emotional energies. So continue to welcome up within you any and all of these energies in your system that don't feel anything like love. They feel like fear, or they feel like despair, or they feel like deep discontent, or they feel like anger or rage, or they feel like sadness. Just invite them to come up into this great open heart space. You can visualize this great open heart space as being full of light, the light of love. The light of grace, of profound healing power. And this is the practice to keep the heart open, to keep it wide, to more and more touch into the nature of this vast open heart space, which is pure awareness, infinite intelligence, and unconditional love. And to keep welcoming into this vast open heart space everything that so desperately needs to be touched with love, to be transmuted by love, to be resolved back into love. practice is to not shy back from anything. But to see that everything that comes into your system that's fear-based, that's despair-based, again, whether it's yours or another's, everything that comes into your system, the practice is to bring it up into the heart, into the wide open heart space, to make the heart a refuge. For everything that desperately needs to feel its connection to love. Everything that feels so empty and void without it. It can be challenging because we're used to shutting the heart down when pain arises. So this is exactly the opposite. Instead of shutting the heart down, we keep the heart wide open. Completely and utterly accepting and welcoming of all these difficult and painful energies. We're willing to take these energies deeply into the light of the heart, the light of love, the light of grace. This isn't a trick or a technique to make painful emotions go away. It's a practice of learning how to bring love to suffering. Our own and that of others. Can you, for just a few more minutes, watch these energies, whatever is in you, whatever is in the system, can you watch them with an attitude of loving kindness? And with practice, more and more, you come to realize your identity as awareness and love. Less and less do you identify with these energies of pain and sadness and fear. Rather, you identify as the one that is healing those and resolving those energies back into the light through love. Just for another moment or two, just rest in the light of the heart. Even if there is some residue of fear or sadness or whatever, just rest in the light of the heart that comes from the depth of our being, the core of our being, the heart of our being. I like to think of it as the heart of the heart. And for just a moment, let's practice something radical. Just for a moment, allow yourself to know that you are this light, that this is your true identity, this light of grace, this light of love. Feel yourself to be the light, just for a moment. Let identification as a body and as a separate self, just for a moment, fall away. Then take a nice deep breath. And feel the way that the body is being supported by the chair. And as you begin to open your eyes, stay centered in your heart and in just the felt sense that the heart is open and wide. That within the heart is this great vastness that doesn't perhaps make any sense to the mind, this great vastness within the heart center. See if you can feel that. Even as you open your eyes and orient yourself to the room again. It's important to learn to feel this great vastness in meditation, but also it's important to learn to be able to feel it when your eyes are open, right? So that you can live in your life, in your family, in your work, in your endeavors, more and more from this sense of the vast open heart space. That is your center of operations. That we come to the outer world, in whatever condition it's in, from the vast open heart space. Not from what feels like the very limited resources of our ego self, but from the vast open heart space. So there's a sense, I'm hoping you can feel some of it to some degree, that even as you open your eyes, you can feel that there's somewhat of a radiance in the heart center. If you don't feel that, that's totally fine. We start by just visualizing it. But it becomes a radiance that people around us then benefit from. It manifests through and expresses through our thoughts and our words and our actions. And in this way, our awakening becomes of great benefit to all beings.